All right, welcome to the Big Texas Podcast presented by Texas Young Republicans. I'm your host, Jordan Overturf. Hoping that you are doing well under your stay-at-home orders wherever you are in Texas, or if you're listening elsewhere in the country or the world. We got listeners from around the world. We're going worldwide. In any case, we do hope that you are well, your family is well. You are making your way through this as best as you can. A lot of developments have been happening over the weekend. We hope you had a good time, spending time with family, doing whatever you're doing this weekend. Maybe you're watching Tiger King. Maybe you caught that documentary series. Holy cow. That one blew my mind. And you know what? There was some politics involved in it. Maybe we'll get into it before the next episode, but that's a whole other distraction. If you didn't see, on Friday, President Trump signed the CARES Act, $2.2 trillion that are coming in stimulus form to businesses and individuals to help us get through this coronavirus response. And then on Sunday, followed that up with a press conference outlining the extension of his guidelines for this response all the way through April 30th. Earlier in the day, Governor Abbott had gotten on a press conference, announced he was expanding the travel guidelines for anyone coming from, I believe it's California, Washington State, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and now the entire state of Louisiana. I wasn't quite clear on some of the ruling there, but basically, if you're traveling from one of these states, these are high-risk states where there are a large number of cases being reported. You are to self-quarantine upon your return to Texas if you're flying back from one of these states. There was also some mention of driving from Louisiana is discouraged, but as always, I recommend that if you want to find out more about this, make sure you go to the governor of Texas's website. That's gov.texas.gov. Or you can just Google Office of Governor Greg Abbott. Go to the news page and you'll be able to get links to all of these executive orders. He also announced a new executive order on Sunday that basically is telling the local jails and state prisons to not release anyone as part of their coronavirus response actions, saying that we don't need to be releasing felons. This is for their safety and for the safety of the community. At least if they're in those situations, they can control what is happening in the jail. So we'll see more about everything going on with that, and we'll try and bring you some more information as these things change. But just like you, we're trying to keep up with everything day to day, minute to minute. So many things happening in this coronavirus response. And so if you have been doing your part, staying at home, or if you are a medical worker, a grocery store employee, a first responder, one of the people is out there helping make sure that we're at least well fed, we are taken care of if we do need to go to a hospital, or there's that response, whatever the situation. We appreciate you as well. We are going to get through this. I've said it before, this virus is tough, but Texans are tougher. So we're all going to do our part to make sure that we make it through and we get back to life as we knew it before the coronavirus. One of the people that's trying to make that happen is my guest today, State Party Chairman James Dickey, RPT Chairman, joined us via phone, doing some more social distancing, but also he's real busy trying to promote all the things that the Republican Party of Texas is doing right now with its RPT Serves program getting rebooted. All the efforts to continue the campaign work, trying to continue fundraising, as well as training a lot of grassroots folks to get out there and get on the ground. November is going to come regardless of coronavirus. And so we're going to need to be prepared to deploy as many volunteers out into the field as possible to connect with voters, new and old, make sure we get them to the ballot box in November. It's going to be a crucial election. But Chairman Dickey actually has a whole other campaign he's running, which is also why we had him on the podcast. He is running for re-election as state chair and is being challenged by Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, who we had on the podcast last week. So If you haven't heard that interview, you can go back and listen to that one after you listen to this one. But as always, I'm talking too much. I'm going to let the chairman take it from here. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Chairman James Dickey. Even with campaign suspended, I know it's a busy time for you. You've got a lot going on. The first thing I want to talk to you about is this RPT Serves Initiative. I really love that the party is taking its grassroots power and putting it to good use at this time. So can you walk us through a little bit more about what that program is?
Absolutely. So RPT Serves is an initiative that we ramp up every time there's a group of our fellow Texans in serious need. We most recently did that after Hurricane Harvey. We had hundreds of people step up to help our fellow Texans who were most in need. We had truckfuls of supplies and efforts out to them. And we are doing that again now in this coronavirus response. We have people donating blood. We have people working with food banks. We have people working with pregnancy crisis centers. We have people reaching out to elderly near them. We have people working to help make life better. And, you know, the contrast of the response is the contrast that you see between Republicans and Democrats all over the place. Our response was to jump in and help our friends and neighbors, to take personal responsibility and to be the cure. And the Democrat response was to snipe about the governor and others not communicating enough and to talk about how much they were going to talk about what was going on. And I think that just shows in a nutshell how Republicans really have the better response. The conservative response is the right response really every time.
So, I mean, so much has changed in the last few days since I last spoke with you. You know, the president today signing the CARES Act. What do you think about the kind of overall coronavirus response as we look at it making its way headway? I mean, we're deep into it now at this point.
Absolutely. The Republican Party of Texas and I are 100% committed to the coronavirus response plans that continue to be communicated by President Trump, Vice President Pence, and Governor Abbott. You know, the Republican Party of Texas has a duty to the safety and health of those who wish to become delegates to the state convention, and it's so important in this time of media hysteria and online rumors. I want to be abundantly clear. The Republican Party of Texas and I are 100% committed to the successful response of President Trump, Vice President Pence, and Governor Abbott. The president, the vice president, and the governor, they've given us the information we need to make the decisions we must in a time when we need it most. And so I join the many Texans that don't want our God-given liberties and our constitutional liberties smashed in the process of responding to this, but we are unleashing our grassroots power to defend our constitutional liberties at the local level. In fact, one of the things we can do here is glean useful examples during this experience of regulations that cause more harm than good, and take those examples into our future efforts as we make the case, once again, that it's conservative principles that provide the best balance of safety and opportunity going forward.
So as you go through this, I mean, this is something that people across the board have said is unprecedented. So from your position of leadership as chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, have you heard what has the response been to the RPT choice of action in the past couple of weeks as you've made the pivot during coronavirus?
The response has been really, really positive. I mean, people realize what a Herculean effort it was, and what, frankly, a miraculous thing it was that we were able to have 300, over 280 county and Senate district conventions that were all scheduled to have happened last Saturday. And we were able, by communicating well and knowing the details and being able to execute a plan, we were able in a week and a half, we were able to turn that around so that we had hundreds of people all over Texas who were going to have events from dozens to hundreds of people in each of those places. And we were able to set the example and not spread this thing, to be part of making sure that Texans, our fellow Texans, were protected while also protecting the rights of our delegates. And it was a Herculean effort, and it came off without a hitch. And that is not accidental. That is a result of a couple of years of building an amazing team that executed well, and the feedback has been universally positive.
Now, you're a guy that's on the go constantly. How have you yourself managed from a leadership perspective during this coronavirus response?
Yeah, as you said, over the last couple of years, I've done 375 events in 120 towns and cities across Texas. I am usually putting on thousands of miles every week. The irony is that in spite of not having that happen over the last couple of weeks, I have still been working 13 and 14-hour days to make sure that we communicate as we must with everybody, to make sure everybody's in the loop. We've had to coordinate our response. We have coordinated our response with the RNC, with the president's team, with the governor's team, with numerous elected officials from city level up, and making sure that we are taking care of our fellow Texans. And that the fact that has come off without a hitch has been due solely to an amazing team that we put together over the last couple of years, and a lot of hard work. And I'm so proud of everybody.
Now, you're not just talking the talk, though. You're walking the walk. Didn't you donate blood earlier this week to help kick off this whole RPT Serves Initiative?
Absolutely. I for years now, I have given platelets, which is a wonderful thing because since they take your blood out, they spin it through a centrifuge, and then they put back what they don't need right away. And because they do it that way, you're actually able to give blood much more frequently instead of just once every couple of months. You can give it once every week or two. And that is so much more helpful to them. Now, it takes time. It can take up to an hour and a half to do that, but it is so worth it and so needed, especially at this time. I am honored to have been able to do that, and it's just something I've done for more than a decade now.
Now, you are currently in the middle of a campaign yourself, running for re-election for state party chair. As far as that goes, how have you been able to manage those efforts, and what are you doing from the campaign side of things at this time?
Well, one of the things is I'm running to be chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. Nothing else. I'm not running for Republican National Committee chair. I'm not running for governor of Texas. I am running to be chairman of the Republican Party of Texas to see through the plan I've set out for victory for this November for President Trump and our ballot from the White House to the courthouse. So we make sure that we build the best team we've ever had, that we build for our future as well. And so, I have frequently said to everyone that, the best thing I can do, the best way that I can run is to do an excellent job. And we've done exactly that. My number one priority is winning in November. We've got now the convention in July. My focus right this minute has been on moving that convention successfully and working with the RNC and working with everyone else we need to do to make that happen, working with the SRC and our officials committee to make dramatic changes so that we can have online meetings. The amount of change we've had to manage through and communication we've had to manage as we manage through this crisis has really been huge, but we have executed it well. And that as I've talked to folks, and I'm not doing the campaign activities, but I am proving that I am best qualified for the job.
Now, it's one thing to talk about the government making changes as it goes through this response process. But you, as head of the party right now, have the ability to make those changes, those institutional changes to how RPT operates down the road. As you've gone through this process, what are some areas where you think that changes may be made permanent in order to ease the process for Republicans down the road?
Well, first of all, there's no way that we could have responded to this crisis like we have been able to respond to this crisis if we had not laid the groundwork over the last couple of years. And we did that on so many fronts. We built up our accounting processes and modernized those. So we are now able to do all of those 100% remote. That was not at all the case a couple of years ago. We have raised funds and built up the biggest reserve of funds the party had ever had. Before I was elected, the party had never had more than $2 million cash on hand. And the week that we got hit with this coronavirus, we had $4.7 million cash on hand. The party had never had that much cash on hand. Thank God that we had managed conservatively over the last couple of years. Thank God that we were well ahead of our fundraising plans and ahead of all our initiatives, or else we wouldn't be able to weather these storms as we are. And this is, I can't tell you how grateful I am for the vision and foresight that we had to begin our march to victory in 2020, the night of the November 6, 2018 election. Had we not spent every day since that election preparing for victory this November, it is nearly guaranteed that we would be in a world of hurt right now. We would not have been ready for this kind of a catastrophe, but we were, because we managed well and because we worked hard and because we went all in at a level never before seen.
Now, I know that one thing that Republicans, even if they're not thinking about it right now, it may be at the back of their minds. Certainly, as we go forward, Republican and Democrat responses to this virus are going to be weighed in the public. Do you think, as you look at this response, that 2020 is the same, atmosphere that we faced in 2018, or because of this, the coronavirus, do you feel like we've had a kind of reset in terms of where we are politically?
I would say it's much more than a reset. I would say it was a massive wake-up call. The average American cannot help but see how the Democrats tried to not let a crisis go to waste. They tried to put their Christmas list in a bill that was supposed to be focused on taking care of average Americans. And that just blatant and obvious pandering and work for the base that the Democrats did, that is going to come back and bite them this November, as it should. And conversely, the kind of leadership and care for all Texans that Governor Abbott has shown, for all Americans that President Trump has shown, that absolutely is going to redound to their benefit. But months is forever in politics. That it is our job, especially because the press will do their best to gaslight Americans and to try to make Americans forget this. It is going to be our job, and it's going to take a lot of work for us to remind people of that constantly as we get down to the stretch. And that's where the plan that we have built over the last 2 years at the Republican Party of Texas is so crucial. If not for the thousands of volunteers and the hundreds of staff that we are building for, we would not be able to take advantage of the fact that the Democrats have shown their true colors and shown just how blatantly political they are and how they will not let any crisis go to waste.
Well, and regardless of coronavirus, the one thing that Texans Republicans are definitely concerned about is they don't want another repeat of 2018. So that it also puts you at an advantage over your opponent because you have the opportunity to take action. So can you talk us through some of the things that you have done over the past year and a half to ensure that Texas doesn't go through a similar election cycle as they did in 2018?
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest thing we did right away, right after the 2018 election, we started analyzing what happened and what didn't happen because there's nothing more dangerous than going off in the wrong direction. And it became obvious very quickly that voter registration needed to be a priority for the party, and it had not been in decades. And so we got to work on that. We started pitching other people. We pitched the RNC. We pitched donors. We started making the case for how important voter registration was. And that message took on so well that an outside group raised millions to do paid voter registration effort. And we got Karl Rove himself to come back and help us make sure that we did a volunteer-led effort at the Republican Party of Texas, because volunteers are our superpower and our unique advantage. And with that volunteer-led effort, the week before the coronavirus hit, we had hit 73,000 confirmed new Republican registered voters towards our goal of 100,000 registered voters. And we had done that with 3,300 signed up confirmed volunteers toward our goal of 10,000 volunteers. And we had done that with dozens of staff, more staff than we had had at the peak of the last two elections combined. And we're well on our way to this summer having 281 paid field staff working, which for comparison is more than double the staff that Governor Abbott had at the peak of the last election. So yes, we could only do that thanks to the fundraising we had done, which last year was triple what it had ever been. And at the end of last year, we had saved up more than double what the party had ever saved up before.
Have those operations been put in jeopardy with the coronavirus response?
Well, right now, our staff, which is all still fully staffed, our staff is working the phones instead of working in person. They are working online trainings instead of in-person trainings. We have not let it stop a bit, and they have been working the phones like crazy. I've been watching the reports. They did thousands of voter contacts last week, and they will continue to do so as we move forward. The only question around coronavirus now is the timing of when we will add staff. And obviously, safety is preeminent. We will make sure that we will add people when it is safe, and we will go back to door-to-door efforts when that is safe. But we are not going to let anything, including the biggest pandemic in 100 years, stop us at all. Nothing is going to stop us from winning in 2020.
Now, we talked quite a bit about what's happening right now and what you've done here in recent history to bulk up the party. But I want to take our listeners back a bit. Can you give us a quick run through of your background and experience and kind of what led you to become the state party chair right now?
Absolutely. So we moved to Fort Worth when I was 10 so that my father could go to the seminary in Fort Worth. We lived on the east side of Fort Worth. I graduated from an all-black high school, a Polytechnic High School in Fort Worth, and that really burned into me the desire to spread our message for conservatism to every single neighborhood and every single community all over Texas. I left Texas for a little while, got back in 92. All three of our kids, my wife and I, all three of our kids were born here in Texas. They were all raised here in Texas. And around 2008, when I went to go vote in the primary, and our only choice then was McCain. And I was really frustrated that Texas didn't have, that it was over by the time Texas got to vote. And I was really frustrated that Texas didn't have a bigger say. So I participated in the county convention, then the Senate convention, and then the state convention. And even though I'd gone as an alternate delegate to the state convention, I got elected to be an alternate delegate to the national convention. And I went as an alternate delegate to the national convention at great personal expense and time, and was able to learn under an amazing person who is still a mentor to this day about how amazing it is that in Texas, an individual, grassroots individuals, can make huge impact in Texas. I've got really involved in all sorts of things. I co-founded the Dallas Tea Party. I volunteered from fundraising for the local county party. Then I started a company in Austin. And in Austin, I got involved, ran a contested race, won a contested race for precinct chair, and then ran for county chair and became county chair for 3 years. And then just under 3 years ago, ran for state chair and won then and won re-election just under 2 years ago. And so for the last 3 years, I've been serving as state party chair, and really every step along the way there, I've gotten asked multiple times, what's your plan? What's your vision? What do you want to do? I have a plan and a vision for the party, and that is for the party to have the biggest impacts it's ever had to enable other people, other grassroots folks to have the kind of impact that I was able to have. But this is not a career path. This is not a stepping stone for me. This is me being able to serve the greatest level possible wherever I am needed the most. And that's been what has driven me. It'll be 3 years in June that I've served as chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. It's a job I've loved doing from the bottom of my heart. And when I got it, the treasurer of the RPT the night before I was elected, the treasurer announced that the RPT was going to be bankrupt in just a few months. And instead, I was able to turn it around, even though 3 months after I was elected, Hurricane Harvey hit Texas. We had to pause fundraising. We had all sorts of other things we had to do. And yet, I was able to turn us around and put it in record territory by the end of 2017, all through 18, looked at the results at the end of 18, learned from those, and have put in place a plan that is working. And we have proof it's working, and we know it's working at every single level. We had major victories in Houston City Council elections in December. We know we can win using this plan, even in urban areas. We won in suburban areas. We won in House District 28 in January, in a district that we had only won by 8% back in the 2018 election. Implementing our plan, we turned it into a 16-point pounding in January. The plan is working, and it is so exciting to see, and I am committed to seeing that through for President Trump and everybody else on the ballot in November.
So, since 2008, how do you think the Republican Party of Texas has changed? And would you say it's changed for the better?
Well, there have been a lot of changes since 2008. The biggest change for the entire state of Texas has been a massive increase in registered voters. And that was one of the things we discovered after the analysis of the 2018 election. We've had 3 million new voters added. I mean, to give the listeners a feel for that, that's more than there are in 26 of the states. I mean, that's more registered voters than there are in Colorado. We've added that many just in the last 6 years. And so that's been a massive change. But there were also all sorts of changes. 2008 was the Obama election and that wave. 2010 was the Tea Party election and that response and that wave. I mean, people tend to have short memories. It was only 2003 when Republicans ever took over the Texas House of Representatives. And as recently as 2009, our majority in the Texas House was 1 vote. And so winning the Tea Party wave in 2010 and 2012 and 2014, that was great. And to a certain extent, the Obama administration gave us something to push against and gave us tailwind in Texas that made far too many Republicans complacent. And one of the best things out of the 2018 election is that while we still retained all of our majorities and we still retained control, it was enough of a wake-up call that our efforts to energize people, to encourage them to get out, they are being much, much more successful this year and last year than they were in 2017, 2018.
Now, One of the topics that I got into with your opponent was the future of this party. And my first question to you is how do you think we reach more younger Texans or young people who are newly moved to Texas?
Well, that's actually one of the big side benefits of the voter registration efforts. It puts us automatically working with younger voters and with voters who are new to Texas. And that is so important because the research shows that even people who are moving here from deep blue areas, those who move here come at about 50-50 Republican Democrat. Now, 50-50 is not good enough. We need to win them over and welcome them and make the case for our policies. And what's so great about the voter registration outreach efforts is it lets us make that case, lets us be welcoming, lets us get people included quickly to make sure they are and stay on our side. And we've done that also with coalitions. So we have been working to grow our high school Republicans and our college Republicans and the young Republicans and the Republican women. And through those efforts to help those coalitions and auxiliaries grow, we are seeing more young people come to the party, and we are seeing them come better equipped. And the great thing is they come already sharing our values. They come already believing our principles, living out our principles. The important thing is for us to welcome them. And that's the initiative that our hundreds of staff and our thousands of volunteers are implementing this year.
Now, some of the YR platforms are a little bit at odds with the larger Republican Party of Texas planks. And as young Republicans continue to advocate for these different topics, be it criminal justice reform or, the topics that are considered sharp objects, let's say, my question to you is, as an older Republican, the state party chair, what do you make of the young Republicans and their advocacy, and are they trying to take the party in a positive direction?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say specifically on criminal justice reform, that is an area that not only helps us overall. First of all, it's fiscally responsible. I mean, the Right on Crime initiative at Texas Public Policy Foundation has a lot of great work on that. And our platform has actually been really great on that. And that's allowed us to do great engagement of communities, not just the young, but minority communities as well. I mean, the work I did and the we were doing on the Sandra Bland Act this last time, and the effort to eliminate the ability of police without any guardrails to jail someone for something a judge isn't even allowed to jail them for. That leads to all sorts of conflict that those of us who care about law enforcement and respect law enforcement, those kind of interactions don't increase respect. They cause problems. And I took some heat for that, but that was right in our platform. And that's a kind of position that will help us grow the party. And so my response to anyone who wants to advocate that or any other principle is the same it's always been. That's awesome. That is exactly why it is so fantastic that we are the most bottom-up group there is. We are the most bottom-up political organization. I have committed since before I was ever elected chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, even before I was elected chairman of the Travis County Republican Party, my commitment was to go to the legislature and fight for whatever our delegates chose to be our position. And that's why it's so amazing the way our process works. It is so bottom up. I encourage anyone, if they are passionate about an issue, bring it forward. I would be more than pleased to fight for that effort if it makes it through and is voted for by the delegates.
There you go, Jason Vaughn. You heard it from the chairman himself. Keep fighting, brother. Chairman, as we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to speak directly to the Republican voters, many of whom will likely be going to state convention in July. Here's your chance to make the case. Why should they vote to reelect James Dickey for state chairman?
You know, I have served as chairman of the Republican Party of Texas for 3 years, and I have loved it from the bottom of my heart. I came into a scenario where the party had not had any impact on the legislature. The party was not succeeding financially. The party just didn't matter as much as I knew in my heart that it should. And just 3 months after I was elected in 2017, then Hurricane Harvey hit. It was a tough time for Texans, but it brought out the best in us because we brought back RPT Serves. We connected Texans who could help with Texans who needed help. We relaunched that RPT Serves effort to connect Texans during this coronavirus pandemic. And it took several weeks for us to come back to normal after Harvey. But even with that stall, we turned around the financial state of the RPT by December of 2017 from what the prior treasurer had said would be devastation. We were on an upward fundraising trajectory, and we have never looked back. You know, with the help of so many from across the Republican spectrum, we have broken fundraising records, and we have grown our team to a well-oiled machine ready for the November 2020 election. Since election night 2018, our entire focus has been winning in November 2020. My entire focus has been on winning in November 2020. Within weeks of that election, we were at the table with top brass from Texas and top brass at the Republican National Committee, pushing for a voter registration effort and more attention for Texas. We came home and went to work, building coalitions, working with Republicans across the spectrum in a unified effort to make voter registration a priority for Republicans. I appointed a victory chair a year and a half ahead of the November 2020 election so that we were funding our statewide victory effort earlier than ever before and building up our cash reserves for deployment in the summer and fall of 2020. We laid out a plan to have more field staff working earlier than anyone can recall, and we've done that. We launched the Volunteer Engagement Project to get back to the hard but wonderful work of the party directly recruiting a volunteer army like Ernie Angelo did for President Reagan's campaign, where he had to write 20,000 thank you notes to Republican volunteers who helped in that 1980 victory. And we made voter registration the backbone of the Volunteer Engagement Project, proliferating the successful 10K for 10R project. Karl Rove and Steve Munisteri joined forces to fund and steer this project for the Republican Party of Texas, and I am grateful for their commitment to this initiative. You asked why I should be reelected. I am the most prepared to serve in this role of chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. I've been in the Texas trenches where it matters for this job, and I have proven my commitment to Republicans across the state to unite with them to win in November 2020. I'm the most qualified to serve in the role of chairman. I understand the sacred role of our Texas grassroots in the business of the Republican Party of Texas. My dear late friend Clint Moore personally wrote the rules to make us a grassroots-up organization where the grassroots have the largest voice possible. We are not top-down. I've served in grassroots roles that matter to serving as a Republican Party of Texas chairman. Having served as a precinct chair, a delegate, an alternate delegate, a county chair, I can empathize with their perspective, where they're coming from when they call upon the state party, and I can empower them the best. I am a proven leader for the Republican Party of Texas. Whether it was the daunting financial news right on the eve of my election as party chair, or natural disasters, or tough elections, or the biggest pandemic in a century, the thousands and thousands of miles put on my Kia, driving to more than 375 events in 120 cities across our great state. I have shown that I can make sure that Texas Republicans win as we must to build the future we must. whether that be at the city council level in Plano or Houston, or at the national level, like the victory we are going to deliver for President Trump in 2020. God bless President Trump, and God bless Texas.
Chairman, thank you so much. If people want to learn more about you and your campaign, where is the best place for them to do that? Give us your website, your social media, all that stuff.
Absolutely. JamesRDickey.com, Dickey, JamesRDickey.com, on Twitter at Twitter at James Dickey, and on Facebook at James R. Dickey.
Excellent. Well, we'll let you get back to all of your efforts to help RPT navigate this storm. We do appreciate you, and we look forward to having you on again as we get closer to state convention.
Well, and we have moved mountains to move our convention to a safe time in July. I strongly encourage everybody to participate in the Senate District and County conventions, become a delegate or an alternate state convention, and come to state convention. And when you do, please vote for me.
Excellent. Thank you, Chairman. Have a good one. All right. Thank you again to Chairman Dickey for joining us. Thank you to you for listening, for subscribing, following us on Twitter and Instagram at Big Texas Podcast, following Texas Young Republicans on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Texas YRs. If you are listening to us on iTunes or Spotify, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow whatever the button says to make sure you continue to get these new episodes as we put them out. We're continuing to line up interviews with state officials, policy experts, all of those things. We are going to continue to social distance, so it'll probably be a lot of phone-in interviews as we go forward, but we do appreciate everyone who is reaching out, wanting to have a conversation with us, because it's a conversation with you, so you can be informed about what is happening in our communities throughout Texas. And you know what? These candidates are working hard to find out what the voters need. And so even if they're not on the campaign trail, they're taking part in the coronavirus response and learning from voters what they want to see in terms of action from their elected officials. So we appreciate everyone doing their part, including those who are staying home during this crucial time to flatten the curve, squash the curve, whatever we're doing to the curve. We're just making sure it's not big. But thank you again. As always, it's a pleasure to keep on doing this. We appreciate everyone who comes on. I'm just real appreciative right now. I guess that's what's happening during this response. Until next time, friends. We'll see you down the road.